Remove the trim.
The steps needed to access the other side are the same as this side.
Remove the Torx bolts by turning them counterclockwise.
There are 6 bolts that need to be removed. Remove the remaining bolts. Turn the wheel to give yourself better access to the lining.
Remove the bolts by turning them counterclockwise.
We recommend wearing gloves when changing your lights. The oils on your fingers can create hot spots and cause the bulb to burn out prematurely. Pull away the wheel well lining for access. The wheel well lining can be pretty rigid and sometimes sharp, so it's a good idea to have a pair of gloves before attempting this repair. Here's a closer look at the bolts you need to remove.
Remove the bolts by turning them counterclockwise.
Turn the wheel to give yourself better access to the lining.
Remove the bolts by turning them counterclockwise. Considering the amount of effort required to access the bulb assembly, we recommend replacing both sides at once.
Pull away the wheel well lining for access.
Remove the bolts by turning them counterclockwise.
Okay, so we're going to start on either side here. You do want to kind of pull down on this and then kind of away. And you can see we just kind of got that off, and now we can kind of just go do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll be able to kind of pull the whole bumper back a decent amount here. So now that we have the two kind of sides disconnected, we're just going to come to the middle and kind of just pull back here. Now you can see this is going to come back pretty good here for us. We can just kind of leave it at this point, and then we can find the bolts that secure the housing here and remove those, and then we should be able to pull this housing out.
Remove the bolts by turning them counterclockwise. Wiggle the housing to remove it from the vehicle. Squeeze the tabs and pull the connector to disconnect it. Now you can replace your housing with a new one. Reconnect the bulb housing. Push the connector straight in to connect the new bulb. Reinsert the bulb housing into the vehicle.
Align the tabs and push the housing to get it back into place.
Replace the bolts by turning them clockwise.
Make sure the bulb housing is secure.
Okay, so now that we have the housing back in, we're going to kind of lift up on the bumper here and get this back into place. So we'll just kind of lift up. Make sure it's not really getting caught up on anything. There are some clips here on the top, so you can kind of push this back in. We'll kind of push that in, push it in kind of over here. Once we kind of have it just kind of sitting there, we can go kind of patch up the wheel welds now and then get back up to the top and patch it up. All right, so now we're going to come over here and kind of put this back up into position. There are some tabs that you got to line up here. Now, if there is a little gap, that's fine. You can kind of just leave it there. When we put the bolts in, it'll kind of cinch it back up for us. So now that we got the wheel well kind of up into position the way we want it, we're going to put the bolts in that secure this bumper. Now, there's all 8mm bolts kind of for the wheel well. The ones that secure the bumper are going to be quite a bit longer, so make sure that you're putting those ones up in here. But we'll pop these back in.
Replace the wheel well lining. Tuck the lining behind the lip of the bumper. Replace the bolts by turning them clockwise.
Turn the wheel to give yourself better access to the lining.
Replace the bolts by turning them clockwise. Replace the wheel well lining. Tuck the lining behind the lip of the bumper. Replace the bolts by turning them clockwise.
So we're going to replace the bolts now on the top here, and then we have those two that were kind of in the kind of above the headlight housing there. Now, there are two different types of bolts. One of them is a T25, one's a T30. Also, the T25 has a bit coarser thread than the T30. So make sure the one with the coarser thread, we're putting back into that area that's kind of above the headlight housing here.
Replace the Torx bolts by turning them clockwise.
Then all we have to do is just put the trim back on. All we're doing is kind of lining it up with this section here and just kind of pushing it back on. There's also a little section like that kind of on the headlights where it goes. So what I'll do is I'm kind of just going to get it relatively into place here. And then we just have to kind of go and push down to get it to kind of snap onto this